Recording in progress.
Okay, I'll call tonight's Committee of the Whole meeting to order. It is 6:01 p.m. on August 5th. Okay, on business A, discuss 111 South Water Street status and options.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Stocks. Mayor Stocks had asked me to give this presentation tonight. As you all know, 111 South Water Street has been a topic of discussion in the city for quite some time, and we just want to bring forward a discussion of the site's history. We'll talk about the current status of the property, some possible future uses, and then we'll be looking for some feedback from you all so that the mayor and city staff can have some future direction on this property. So I'm just going to briefly recap the site history. Historically, many decades ago, property was home to the Farmers Cooperative Company, which you see in that picture on the right side of the screen. After that, the site was utilized as a municipal parking lot for quite some time. The 1960s saw some issues with the property. And then I thought it was interesting, I found that in 1979, the city purchased it from James Romline, a name that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. 1969 saw some retaining wall failure, and I just thought that was an interesting picture for historical reference. You can see the auto dealership across the street. So continuing on that, in 2020, the northern portion of the site was cleared in anticipation of future development. The intention had been through the RDA and the creation of the Benson Family Town Square to spur additional development of this property. As I'm sure you're all aware, the southern portion is still being used as a municipal parking lot, likely in need of some rehab. So there was a past development agreement on this site. The original intent before bringing forward residential development was to try to attract a hotel to this property. It's worth noting that when we had Paytech Consultants do an update to the hotel study in 2024, they no longer recommended this site for a potential downtown hotel. TID number 8 was created in 2021 to support a potential project on this property. Since then, 3 different private developers have attempted to bring projects forward. The development agreement that was in place from 2021 through September 23 lapsed after that developer failed to break ground, and that was following 3 extensions. 2 were built into the development agreement, and then there was one additional one that was granted by the Common Council. Rising interest rates and construction costs were a factor in that project not moving forward. We did issue a request for proposal to developers in December 2023. That only received 1 response, and the developer that was looking at that site is actually no longer in existence as an entity. Intrepid Investments did most recently look at that site in conjunction with a potential project on the North First Street parking lot property. They pulled back from both of those sites, but they have stated that they would be interested in possibly discussing this property again if the city would be interested. So currently the site's still owned by the city of Watertown. The developer returned that property to the city in late 23. It's zoned central business. The future land use is central mixed use that would support a mixed use development or an apartment building or similar uses. It's worth noting that, you know, a project couldn't just break ground immediately. There had been issues identified by the DNR. There was a phase 1 environmental site assessment conducted in 2017. There were issues related to past use of that property and some of the adjacent neighboring properties. Intrepid Investments had been working on and discussing those issues with the DNR prior to stopping their work on the 2 sites downtown. Should also be noted that the current seawall is not in great condition. That was the assessment I got from Andrew Byer, our Director of Public Works. The Main Street Bridge contractor recently damaged the seawall, though that was repaired by them as needed. I just want to talk about a few other issues before we talk about potential uses. I know many people, members of the council, residents have stated they'd like to see commercial development on that site. We have brought that up to developers in the past. None of them have felt it would be realistic to do a purely commercial project on that site. And when we've brought up just doing a first floor commercial space, they haven't been receptive to that either right now. They cited cheaper rents being likely available in the downtown as a factor. Residential use is still realistic if the council would desire that to occur. TIF assistance would likely be needed to some level. The agreement with the original developer utilized tax increment to support the project. Today, construction costs are going to be higher than can be realistically supported by rents in Watertown. On-site parking is a challenge, and it's very expensive to build on-site parking on that site. So what are some of the possible uses that the city could look at? Obviously, rental housing is one. Owner-occupied, for instance, condos could be another use. Could mixed use be viable? We've talked about that a little bit, and actually Mayor Stocks had a suggestion he had received. You know, one possible solution if the city really wants to see a first floor commercial space could be the city leasing that space to guarantee the developer or owner of that property some type of revenue. The space could then be subleased or used as a public space for meetings or other uses. One drawback could be that the city could be seen as competing with private landlords and other businesses. Other potential uses that we've kind of talked about in the past, could it be retained for public use? Could it turn into a green space or an extension of the Benson Family Town Square? Could it be additional parking for the downtown? Could there be the bathroom that I know many people would love to see there? Or could it be a public-private partnership? And we'll talk about some of those ideas in just a couple minutes. So one option is, and we've done this before, we could put this back on the market and release a new request for proposal, see if there's still interest from developers in the property. That process does take time. There's no guarantees that we'll get any submissions. Demand may still be limited due to the size of the site. As we've talked about, it's only about 3/4 of an acre in total. I would, if the city council wanted to go that route, I would personally recommend at least checking with Intrepid Investments. I just think that after the time they took on the property, it would be worth going back and seeing if they want to take another look, but that can be discussed. Another option could be just put the site on the market and sell it as is. The city has sold other properties recently. A couple are in process right now. So there is precedent for that. That would remove any city commitments and, you know, any future obligations. Downside would be the city obviously no longer controls the property. We don't really have control over a future project there if it meets the zoning and so forth. As far as a future Riverwalk, you may still want to include an easement for that, or possibly a preferable option would be to conduct a certified survey map, split off that Riverwalk area so that the city would retain ownership, as the city does own all of the Riverwalk going south and also owns the Benson Family Town Square. That would return the property to the tax rolls at least, and then the city may wish to have an appraisal done. Might be a challenge to see if comparables are available, but we have worked with a appraiser recently on some other properties, and we could probably get a reasonable quote to have that work done.
I think the value is somewhere 200,000.
Your professional opinion?
Yeah, I think where it is, I think you could maybe get 200,000.
Okay, thank you. So one of the discussions is residential or commercial. If it's residential, it could bring in more downtown residents with disposable income. That would be a benefit to the downtown. Increase your tax revenue, obviously. And then my recommendation, and I think most of the development community would recommend this, target market rate or higher. We do already have lower income and senior housing in the downtown area. That upper level doesn't exist currently for the most part. TID number 8 still exists, and if there would be assistance, it would have to pass the but-for test for assistance to a development project. If it's a rental project, PAYGO, which the city has utilized many times before, would be viable if needed. If it's a for-sale project like condos, that gets a little bit trickier. I laid out one scenario where maybe theoretically the city could pay a flat rate per each unit constructed after an occupancy permit is issued. That's just an idea. So what if the city wants to retain this and reuse it? There's been some discussion about that recently. The city could solicit partnerships to create a shared public space, or even create an extension of the Benson Family Town Square. That could be possibly funded by TID funds or park improvement funds, or future borrowing, which I know would probably not be quite as popular right now. That could provide some of those amenities people say they want, the parking, the bathrooms, possible storage space for the town square, and so on, but there's of course long-term maintenance costs with that. City departments, it's worth noted, are somewhat strained maintaining existing facilities. City could allow food trucks. That's another idea that's come up for a fee. That may draw criticism from other downtown businesses. Then there's also the outdoor market idea, which the RDA heard about a couple months ago. We had a local resident make a presentation at one of our meetings. Interesting idea. It could generate tourism, maybe get positive press coverage for Watertown. The question then is who owns that, who operates it on a daily basis. It's not a proven concept for our community. It might be seen as competition for the farmers market, other businesses. My personal feeling is I think other sites could be investigated and might be more suitable, but that's just one suggestion. So, Mayor Stocks very recently took these photos just to show an example of one of these outdoor markets in a different type of community. This is more of a one where vehicles pull up and it's kind of a shopping experience underneath the roof structure. Mayor Stocks, I forget which community this was in. St. Paul, Minnesota. So just an interesting concept, one idea that could have potential. One other thing, I touched on this already, but finishing the Riverwalk is it's a stated goal in the comprehensive plan. It is a stated goal in the RDA's Rock River District Vision Plan. That is the final stretch on that side of the river, south of the Main Street Bridge. There I include some cost estimates, possible ways to pay for that. The RDA would continue working to identify funding sources for future construction. I would personally recommend that this occur no matter what happens. I think the community would like to see it, but there is obviously an expense either way. So the other option is do nothing. Just let it sit for now. I don't personally recommend it. The blighted appearance is not a positive for the downtown community. The TID clock is ticking. That TIF district was created in 2021. There's 18 of the 22 years of expenditure period left. So the longer you wait, the less future increment you have to work with to fund a potential development. The liability issues do continue with that seawall that probably will need to be addressed sometime in the future.
Mason,
Yes.
just to clarify, the TID 5, I thought was the area that, this area of where Benson Square and where that property to the south, where I thought that was previously in TID 5, and that there was an overlap with TID 8 when that was created, and did TID 8 take a portion of, because TID 5 I thought was in that same area.
You're correct. TID 5 was over that area and still does exist. It's currently set to terminate, I believe, in 2032. However, when TID 8, which was an overlay TID, as you mentioned, was laid over that, any new increment generated in that area would go to TID number 8.
Okay.
So that's really what you have to work with. I don't believe TID 5 currently has a lot of fund balance left to work with, whereas I know TID number 8 does have a fairly healthy fund balance right now that could possibly fund some projects that are called for in the TID number 8 project plan.
Okay.
And then, so we're just here again, asking for a clear direction, so hopefully staff sometime in the future can move something forward. It is a city-owned asset, so we're looking for some leadership here. Obviously, the community wants to avoid any further setbacks or disappointments. And I'd like to also note, we do have a couple of our RDA board members here this evening. Obviously, Alder Berg and Alder Arnett are also on the RDA, and the RDA could be involved if needed. The revolving loan fund is one tool available. There's about $120,000 available today to loan out if a project would come forward. There could be other assistance for a project through WEDC or Thrive. And then, you know, if the council would want further study of the issue, public input and so forth, the RDA could possibly play a role in that as well. So that's the summary that I had. And now I think I assume the mayor wants to open this up for some discussion.
I think anything, maybe questions for Mason, but just kind of speak freely your thoughts and what to do with that property in the future. Mr. Berg?
Yeah, I was on I'm on the RDA, and I was there. I know a person, Gene Schmidt from Watertown. He, in his travels, goes to different states and towns, and he has observations from those travels. He promoted this idea of an open market, and I actually think some variation of that does make sense, because my comments I hear from people is that the Benson Square looks crowded. It's got a lot of concrete. It doesn't really, in its own way, look quite complete. And an extension and a continuation of that in some way that's complementary with a use of that 7/10, 8/10 of an acre would make that area more of a destination. And there's no, I have no problems with taking on some, reasonable cost to make that site more attractive and more of a complete look for the purpose that it has. Which, I mean, there's been over $6 million spent on Benson Square through donations to give it the look it's got now. But I still don't feel, I think it's a great asset, but it seems like it could be better. And so the question is, what do you put in there to make it better? I had a developer that does a lot of development, and he told me that 7/10 to 8/10 of an acre parcel, which is the one that we're talking about, the setback, the dimensions of that site for construction are very difficult, and they are complicated, and they cause a lot of cost issues and reasons why the construction of that site is problematic for developers. It just doesn't have what the land mass you need to address issues of parking and a sizable structure that can create some increment so that you can actually have a worthy project. And that's why we've had limited people come forward. We've explored every one of them. Each of our people, including Mason, have done the best they can to incentivize and encourage people. I never saw the TIF incentives to try to make these ideas work there, but I bet it has a very healthy TIF incentive for developers to commit to that project. And when you give healthy TIF incentives, that means that in its own way you have to, have an extended period of time in the TIF to pay that back on whatever you're giving that developer to commit to that project and to their proposal. So with the high TIF incentives needed, and with all the restrictions of that site on size, I think it makes me want to make the case for something that we can do that complements Benson Square to make it better. That is what I like. And the outdoor market idea that Gene brought up is just because he's gone in places in Michigan and Pennsylvania, Illinois, and he's seen examples that work, that promote tourism, that make people come to your site. Even the farmers market that was very successful on Thursday at the library. We had our traditional Tuesday farmers market at Riverside Park, but then we had a variation of it at the library, and that did well. It was unique and different. It wasn't the same as what they were doing at Riverside Park, but it it appeared to me to be a nice complementary type of farmer's market. Ideas like that could, in theory, go onto this site and somehow, be there for their type of a farmer's market idea. So he also suggested a gazebo for having a place where you could sit. He had the bathrooms to some degree to address and make the Benson Square more feasible, because there's days when the library's not an option, and I've heard from businesses downtown that people are going over to their businesses and using their bathrooms, when the library's not an option. So to the extent that is an issue, this could take away that by addressing it through some type of a project that would take care of the bathroom, but not spend $750,000 like we did in Riverside. Some kind of a realistic number for a modest, realistic type of bathroom accommodation. So I like that. I think it's worth more discussion. It was an idea, but I think we need to think outside the box if we're going to try to make Benson Square really successful. And why not make it bigger, better?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Berg. Yep, Mr. Arnett? Yep.
Sure, give it on. So, a couple thoughts. Frankly, I never thought a hotel was realistic on that site. So, glad to finally see for the first time that I can ever recall a hotel feasibility study come back and say no hotel, because I don't think that's ever happened. So we think we can put a stake in that one. Similarly, for a number of the reasons cited, large-scale residential, some sort of apartment building on there is just not going to work out. The site's too limited. Parking is an issue, and I'll be blunt, I have no interest in having the taxpayers of Watertown underwrite such a structure. Too many cases where we've been shelling out way too much money for high-end apartments that nobody can afford. So I think we just need to put those ideas to bed. I think we need to scale our idea to the site. The observation made of traditional commercial or commercial with residential in an upper story. Why would you do it when there's ready space available downtown? I also agree. You shouldn't be looking for the same structures that are already available in town on that site. What it needs is something that's specific to the advantages of that site that you can't get in any of those other places. And that is the riverfront. It needs to be, not needs to be, I believe we need to look at commercial development. You can have residential on the upper floor, I don't care. Commercial development that is focused on a business that can take advantage of the riverfront access. We're not looking for every type of business. We're looking for the type of business that would love to have that shoreline. Whether that's a unique dining experience, whether that is recreational type business that could take advantage of that. It's got to be that kind of thing. It's got to be, and it's going to end up being tailored, frankly, to that type of business. So I think we need to look at a smaller scale commercial. Yes, again, if you want to put some residential on the second floor, who cares? That is aimed at the type of business where we start with the business. We don't start with the site. We don't start with the structure. We start with the type of business that makes sense for that location. And that's what we aim at. And if it's scaled appropriately, I'm not opposed to applying some TIF funds to overcome what are unique engineering constraints on that site. I think there's some use of TIF in that direction is appropriate. I'd be open to, for example, the idea of the marketplace is also a viable spot, because you can't get that kind of structure anywhere else downtown. So again, it would fit the definition of what can't you get somewhere else in downtown. However, I would look for that to be a private sector endeavor, not something that the city is taking upon and owning long term. So those are just my thoughts. Let's put the hotel and apartments to bed. Let's scale the idea appropriately. Let's find the type of business first, and then work with them on the development of the site. And I would like to see in the end that it's something that resides in the private sector and is not a public thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arnett. Mr. Smith, go ahead.
Yeah, I like a lot about what Alderman Arnett has been saying. I think the end goal, from my perspective, is to get development on the site that is going to return this to the tax rolls. There was a lot of tax-producing property that was removed from the tax rolls when the Benson Square project was completed. And my sense is, and again, Alderman Arnett was referring to a development, a business that will be perfectly tailored for this site. And my experience is the best way to find that is to allow the free market to operate, to trust the private sector to evaluate that parcel and determine what would be a productive business enterprise. And the way I think that we can most effectively bring that to pass is to sell this site as is, which is one of the options that Mason was suggesting as a possibility. I don't think the city is particularly adept, nor is any government as adept as the free market would be in coming up with the perfect use of the property and having an investment approach that would be substantially private. That would get it back on the tax rolls and would allow the city to be removed from the process of trying to become a development enterprise in themselves. So many of the proposals that are part of this envision the city being involved in a substantial way to a point where I just don't think it's the best way to proceed. It probably would not come to as effective an outcome, and it would continue to be just an ongoing, difficult undertaking for an entity, the city, that is not perfectly structured to undertake that kind of effort. So what I would do is I would offer this site for sale. I have no idea what it would be worth. I heard Alderman Berg just mention $200,000. That would go a long ways toward helping to defray the costs of the Riverwalk, which I think is key. And I think whatever we would end up selling is going to have to incorporate the completion of the Riverwalk, which I think is important for the city's future. But I would simply put this parcel up for sale, work with a developer, and seek to get this back on a tax-paying status.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Well, before Mr. Berg, I'll see if anybody else wants to say anything first. Mr. Molnauer?
I would agree with Alderman Smith. I think it's time to just let this thing go. Put it up to the highest bidder and leave it go. Because we've been mucking around with this thing for a while now, and it's not going anywhere. I think it's just, let's get the most money out of this piece of property we can and just sell it off.
Robert?
Mr. Berg?
You know, I disagree. I don't disagree with Alderperson Moldenhauer and Smith too often on topics, but I would tell you, we've invested all this money through donations and people that gave their hard money to make that Benson Square an asset. I think to the extent it has anything about it that is less than complete, and again, if the bathrooms are part of that equation of needing to make it more complete, and if you sell it to a private entity and therefore you don't address that issue, you are still continuing with that large investment of Benson Square with issues that are still not quite complete or addressed in a way that make that the asset you want it to be. So I think it's in our best interest to involve ourselves with an idea that is not costly, but does something that does, again, address some of the needs of our city. I've had people that approach me and say, Ken, that is such a prominent location next to the library, on Main Street, by the river. For you not to make that more complete and more appealing is a missed opportunity on the part of the city by saying no to that. And you give it to a private individual, and to the extent they put something in there, whatever it might be, and sure, we could have some control over who we sell it to, but once we put it on the market for a price and people come forward and it complies, then we have to be careful of how we say no to people that come forward. And if we get something in there, we still have that estimate from Mason of $550,000 for the Riverwalk. That even if you do get some number for the value of that sale, you're not fixing the problem. You're still going to have to address that, and I doubt if you're going to get that private person as a condition of buying that piece of land that they're going to contribute or take care of that Riverwalk. They won't pay that, otherwise it won't be appealing to them for purchase. So I think we got ourselves in a bit of a pickle, and the way to get out of it is to recommit to some ideas that are going to make that square the asset that it is. It's right next to our library. That's a $10 million library. It's right where it is because of all the things we talked about. There's a potential for a lot of redevelopment along the river at some point in time, and I know Bill Lindbergh and what he wants to do with his building at on the corner of First, by the bridge. He's got 3 floors there he wants to invest money into. So I think there will be development, and I just think we have to be careful what we do. And we just heard from Mason telling us that they tried commercial, and commercial, when they did market it for a commercial type use, they didn't come forward, from what I understood. Maybe we didn't market it in the right way, but the appeal was on residential, and we're hearing from Alderperson Arnett reasons why. I'm also not in favor of it, because I think the subsidy to make somebody commit to that project for residential is going to be too great for us to give incentives that will lose all of the increment and all the benefit of that project by incentivizing them to go forward and come forward. So we have restrictive options, and I don't like the fact that it's sitting there, but I think we got to be careful what we do with it. And if we sell it away, we won't have a chance to bring it back. And then we still have the issue of our asset, and the people who have put in the $5-6 million of money to make Benson Square what it is. They're watching this closely on this decision, because you're either going to help their investment to make it better or not better. So I'm sure every one of them that gave a nickel or $1 or $1,000 that they want to know what we're doing with that adjacent land.
Thank you, Mr. Berg. Mr. Lampy.
Thank you. I think I'm going to start small and then get bigger on my thoughts here. I actually want to start on page 14 of the packet, where we had that beautiful picture with the backs of the vans at the farmers market. And I want to thank the mayor for taking that picture, because as we talk about farmers markets, that's one of the key things that people want as vendors. It's one of the things that makes our current farmers market at Riverside Park a success. It's one of the things that made the library farmers market a success. It's one of the things that allows us to sell at the craft fair at Riverfest every year, is that people can back up and leave. So any time we talk about a farmers market where people have to lug stuff across a field, a farm, or anything else is unrealistic. So again, I appreciate that as a realistic picture of what a farmer's market looks like in 2025. The second good idea that Mason had in this packet, and there's quite a few, so I can't hit them all, was the idea essentially of breaking off the riverfront using a certified survey map, or CSM. That, regardless of what else we decide to do with the property, that essentially allows us to actually complete what we want to do as a city and allows us to have a contiguous riverfront and control over that. So I thought that was another fantastic idea, not really on my radar until tonight, so I definitely appreciate that one as well. For the larger comments, the perspective I bring to this thing is really having served on boards and elected committees now for a contiguous 8 years, having to work with the town square. That's 5 years on the library board, and then 3 years on council. That's far enough back to remember when the plan was we were going to put a hotel up, and then that was going to fund the square, and then the library was going to happen sometime in there too. So the key thing that really allowed those two projects to move forward with was really millions of dollars of public bonding funds and/or TIF for both projects, which I think is also going to be the case if we want a lot of the infrastructure and subsidization of this project as we continue to move forward. And I do want to be careful with dollar figures. If we start talking about putting infrastructure such as bathrooms, there's already in this packet a quote for $550,000 for the construction of the seawall, notwithstanding the $65,000 on the design estimate. So if we start talking restrooms, if we start talking other facilities, we are definitely going to be back into that million or multi-million-dollar range. And to that end, I do agree with Alder Berg that there are some unfinished business on the square. We still have a structure that we put a tarp on every year, so we have permanent ceiling on that to add some much needed shade to that area. We have an unfinished performance area down on the bottom that Fisher Barton invested a lot of money in that we still don't use. So as we talk about this area as a cohesive area, I mean, I am definitely in favor of a significant investment on public infrastructure for the Riverwalk, for the riprap, for some enhancements to the neighboring area. But I do also see all of that in the future. So I agree very much with Alder Arnett in terms of developing that site with above ground infrastructure in terms of the specific known use, whether that happens to be a, as he stated, a restaurant or a particular place. I also don't see that immediately in the future. I'm very much opposed to letting the site get out of our hands, although of course having the CSM and the most valuable piece of real estate there would make that somewhat palatable. I'm also not really enthused about putting up yet another covered structure on the adjoining property, but I think one of the things that we probably should consider in the short term, again as noted by our RDA director, is that is essentially a blighted area. So an area that we tore down a bunch of buildings to reduce blight on has once again returned to blight and is causing problems in our downtown. There are other much cheaper things we could probably do with that site as is. There is a parking lot there. There is an adjacent field. We could, as we temporarily did with the town square, perhaps look at turning that back into a grassy field that could rapidly be returned to development while we retain control of it, while we are unsure what we want to do with it, and before we start pouring more concrete or developing more structures on that space. So I guess long story short, I'm not in favor of losing control of the parcel. I am very much in favor of breaking it apart with a CSM and allowing ourselves to have options to sell it or do other things separately while we maintain control of the seawall. And if we do move forward with it, I want us basically to be in a position of, again, providing potentially a substantial public investment in seawall, Riverwalk, and some of the missing design elements of the existing square.
Thank you, Mr. Lampy. I'm taking notes, I'm looking for guidance, so if anybody else wants to speak up on it. Okay. Mr. Arnett, yes.
So appreciating what's being said about the Riverwalk and seawall, which I agree are things we need to take care of. and recognizing the millions of dollars that have been donated by private individuals and organizations in the community to the Benson Square. As noted, it's also been millions of dollars of taxpayer money that's gone into that. And I guess I'm just going to say it plain, folks. At some point, the giant sucking sound coming from South Water Street and Main Street needs to end. And we need to put our resources elsewhere.
Thank you, Mr. Arnett. Anybody else? Let's wait a second. I want to move on to the second part B. Okay.
That was useful. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. B, discuss committee minutes. This one shouldn't take too long. I had a few alders asked. We have committee minutes. Sometimes they're approved by their own committee before they come to council. Sometimes they're not. I'll just use an example like Public Works. If there's something that's passed in Public Works, the reason to go to the next council meeting is because there's something that's being acted here to make sure everybody understands what we're voting on. Yet there's a chance that at that Public Works Committee meeting, the next one, they might find something incorrect in those minutes. If it's something punctuational, I think it can just be adjusted at that meeting. If it's something that was missed, just have to go in front of the council again. So was just looking for guidance, just thinking of having the idea of having the word draft right next to on the minutes. So you know it's been approved by that committee already. So maybe I had safety committee meeting and have them approve their own minutes. I would just have the word draft right next to it to let everybody know it hasn't been approved by its own committee yet. So if that sounds okay, or
So,
Mr. Arnett, yes.
Mr. Mayor, if I could rephrase, I think what you're suggesting is that, you know, the current sequence is Public Works could meet on Tuesday, make a recommendation to council. That recommendation to council comes the following Tuesday at the council meeting, but the minutes of the Public Works Commission that describe why it's being recommended are currently not going to come to council the following Tuesday. They won't come until 2 weeks later than that, after Public Works has reviewed the minutes and then approved them and then gone to council. So we're trying to break up this lack of flow where we have most of our actions recommended by either Public Works, Finance, or Public Safety. They're actually coming to council before the minutes of those committee meetings have come to council. And so therefore your
Correct.
suggestion is they should go ahead, the committee meeting minutes should go ahead and come to council marked as draft.
I mean, that own
Yep.
committee has not approved their own
Yep.
minutes yet, yes.
But at least then, the rest of council has the benefit of seeing that discussion that occurred at those prior week committee meetings for the items that they're now looking at council.
Mr. Berg?
Yeah, and again, I think the point that Alderperson Arnett is talking about is really our intent, and has always been our intent, to give minutes to the council that are timely so that we can make decisions. Because a lot of when I was on Public Works and chairman, we would have a lot of action items. So the action items would be, they'd be in place at the next council meeting, and they'd be up for taking action. And the paragraph of narrative written by the chairperson about that topic is very helpful in the council making their decision of voting yes or no to the action item. So whether it says draft, before it didn't say anything, but you had them, and they were coming to the council before the Public Works or the committee was actually getting a chance to review them themselves. But we were doing that intentionally to make sure that the council had information to make the best possible decision. And I think we did it for the right reason. We should keep doing it. And if a draft reference is in there to make that known, I think that's the right thing to do.
Okay.
Mayor, can
Yes.
I say that the template that should be used says that these minutes are uncorrected, and any corrections made thereto will be noted at the proceeding in which these minutes are approved. It's kind of giving that explanation that these are a draft already.
Okay.
Right.
That's actually inside the packet itself, though, right, not on the actual agenda? Yeah. Okay. So I'll put the word draft on there, or leave it off?
I think what Megan
Just go with that? Okay. I had a few people ask about that, so it's kind of brought up now. Okay, we'll leave it as is then. Okay, we'll move on to C then. Discuss media materials, electronic devices. Megan, you spoke with IT. You want to say anything, or?
We were just looking to get feedback from you guys on if you have recommendations on future devices other than tablets. Chris is going to look into Chromebooks, if that is something that you guys would like to see. He's also going to look into the addition of being able to print from your tablets, if that would be helpful, because I don't think now you have that ability. But just wanted to get feedback from all of you.
Mr. Lampy?
So the other thing that I was wondering is possible is just basically an option not to receive any device as an alder, because we're happy with what we got.
I think that might be a city attorney question, if you should be using a personal device or not.
Oh, I definitely use it.
Okay. Mr. Byrd?
I think a related issue that you're bringing up, though, Mayor Stocks, is that the need for at least for some of us, to have hard copy, to be able to be ready for the meetings and to have the information we need. I mean, I've asked for it, and it turns into a big issue on the fact that I should be paying a quarter for every page, and I think that's a joke. I mean, I'm an elected official. I need documents in order to, and they want me to print them off, which I can do. But I think we need to retalk that issue on what we need as elected officials to prepare ourselves for meetings. And if some of you don't need it, that's fine. But if I require and would like some of that to be in hard copy, I don't know why I have to pay for every page I want.
I think this would be an alternative, that you could actually come down here and be able to bring your device and be able to print what you wanted. If you wanted pages 1 through 30, individual pages, there'd be an option for you that way.
Yeah, and then it would also be something to consider for budget. We would, if we're printing packet materials, to incorporate that cost into next year's budget as well.
Mr. Bartz, go
Yeah,
ahead.
just to answer Megan's question, tablet or Chromebook, I mean, either one is fine for me. So I think the print fee, being able to print, obviously it looks like some of us would prefer that option. But if we have that option to be able to do that, I think on either one of them, it would be fine. So.
I believe you can't print with your tablet now, but I think going to a Chromebook, you would be able to. Is that? Mr. Arnett?
I'd just like to suggest that it's open to individual choice. And doesn't need to be a policy statement from a council perspective, except to say it's open to individual choice. I chose not to take the tablet because I found the screen incredibly small to the point of not being useful. I have my own Chromebook. I access our web-based mail, so it's no program installations or anything going on here. And it all works just fine for me, but I certainly wouldn't be one saying everybody else needs to do the same thing.
Okay. Just look at the budget and seeing what to order for council members. Okay, thank you. Does anybody else want to comment, or move on to number? Mr. Smith, go ahead.
The only thing I would say is it would not be typically cost-effective or needful that we would have entire printed packets, which in years past is what happened for every meeting. We have had council packets that have been almost 300 pages. And, you know, I try the best I can to deal with it with the tablet. I can't print from it. It makes it very difficult to print out relevant parts that are important, that would be helpful to have at the council meeting in hard copy. When that ends up happening, I end up sending the email from the tablet to my home computer, and then I end up printing off of my home printer a certain percentage of the pages. But whatever is the decision of the best way forward, I don't find the tablet that helpful. And what I find would be particularly helpful is whatever we have, that it be compatible with a printing option that we could use at home, not have to come down here to City Hall to print out materials or things like maybe would work for some people. So however we move forward, most of us find the most effective way for our own approach to understanding the matters before us. But without the capacity to have printing and hard copies for a percentage of those council packets, it makes it very difficult to proceed in the most effective way.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Lampy.
So I want to return to the idea of personal devices, as is raised by Alder Arnett. There are a number of us who essentially just use the web-based communications, and that is something that has been approved by other municipalities in the United States as okay. If we're looking for funding for like a paper printing program, I mean, I'm in favor of essentially, for those of us who don't really need or want a city sponsored device, you know, can we basically work up a mixed budget where essentially we're funding prints for some of the folks who are looking for it, with the savings from not having to issue or maintain devices for folks who don't want them.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll move on to number 4 then. Discuss public comment at meetings. We had a discussion at finance a couple weeks ago. There's a few city meetings that did not have public comment. So if the finance wants to chime in that, I kind of got out of the meeting to probably have at the beginning public comment. Maybe leave it up to the chair to have it further at the end of the meeting as well. Anybody from finance or somebody else wants to chime in on that? There was like maybe 3 committee meetings that didn't have public comment as an option at the beginning. Mr. Berg?
Yeah, the discussion we had at finance, I was asking that we be consistent and have the ability for people from the public to come and make a comment if they're there and they choose to do so. We benefit from people if they're at a finance meeting or some other kind of a committee meeting and they have a reason to be there. Typically, they are impacted in some way, and they want to let you know something that they feel is affecting them. We, in our decision making, are going to benefit by being receptive to that type of information, and to not have that available. I've gone previously to finance meetings, and I was not allowed to make comment, and I just feel there was examples where I could have been helpful in my own way. So I think we should standardize it. We should make it a requirement at committee meetings that there is an opportunity for public comment, and whether that chair then can have that same ability if they choose to make a comment later in the meeting. That would be under the mayor's
the chair, whoever chair, yeah.
Yeah, I think the chair could make that kind of a decision, but I do feel that we benefit from public comment, and it is not going to add all kinds of time to our meetings. It's not going to make us go home at midnight. So I think who's ever suggesting these hypotheticals are just they're getting carried away with their example. It's going to add maybe a few minutes, and maybe a lot of time not an extra minute at all, because people will, but they will appreciate the fact that they were given the chance to comment.
Mr. Arnett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree with Alderman Berg. we should be consistent. There should be a public comment period at all of our appointed commissions.
Mr. Mullenhour? Mr. Lambie?
So at the Finance Committee, Alderberg is correct that the consensus was that we should probably have something more policy or even ordinance driven that actually required public comment. So to the degree that this was a previous impetus, I guarantee that the previous occupant of the mayoral seat had like a standard agenda that was pushed out to various departments, but it's not backed up by ordinance. We looked at that at the Finance Committee. So I know we're just discussing right now, but I would definitely say that the direction that the Finance Committee was going in its own discussion was to look at something to be added to the ordinance that also talked about a common structure for committee meetings, just like there is by ordinance a structure for common council meetings today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lampe. Anybody else? Okay. We can adjourn then.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourn. Second by Bartz. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. I'll take a few minutes. We can start a little after 7. Okay.
Are you gonna go inside tickets on Saturday?
I wasn't asked to.
All right, it's been about 5 minutes, a little break.
Did he ask me, or did he ask you?
Recording in progress.
Oh, wait. Okay, before I call the meeting order, I'd like to call Pastor Bob Loggins over from Calvary, give him a vocation.
There we go. Okay, very good. Dear Lord, we thank you so very much for the city of Watertown. Thank you for these men and women and the work that they put into our community. And for our mayor, we pray that you just give them wisdom now as they go through the various items that are at hand. We thank you for the truth that blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. And so as they contemplate and as they discuss and deliberate, we pray that you'll just give them that special wisdom that they need. And we'll be certain to give you the praise and the thanks for it. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call the Common Council meeting on August 5th to order. It is 7:04. Megan?
Davis. Lampy. We'll come back. Berg.
Here.
Bartz.
Here.
Blanky. Smith.
Here.
Arnett.
Here.
Wetzel.
Here.
Moldenhauer. Here. I'll just mark him in when he comes back.
I think it'll be all right, yeah. Okay. Please stand for Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, first up, minutes of council meeting from July 15th.
Mayor, I'll move for adoption of those minutes.
A motion by Berg, second by Molnauer. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Next, comments and suggestions from citizens present. Please state your name and address for the record. You have up to 3 minutes. If the timer goes off, just kind of please finish your thoughts.
Chris Ross.
My name is the Reverend Dr. Christopher Ross. I live at 432 West Clover Lane in Cottage Grove, but I serve here in Watertown as pastor of First Congregational United Church of Christ. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am part of the local group known as Building a Welcoming Watertown, first begun by 4 Watertown area congregations. We continue to speak to the need for a community overnight warming shelter, so that we have a chance to reduce the number of those at risk of freezing to death during the upcoming winter. We still believe that if anyone in our community finds themselves in danger of freezing to death, that's on all of us. A proposal for a community overnight warming shelter based on a public-private partnership has been submitted and is working its way through a process, and we are grateful for the input and conversations we've been having with various city officials. Because of our roots as a faith-based group and because so many of you share a claim to the same source of scripture that so many of us do, we would like to continue to remind you of that shared scriptural wisdom. Matthew chapter 19, verse 21 says, Jesus said to him, "If you wish to be perfect, go sell your possessions and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me." Matthew chapter 25, verses 34 through 40 say, "Then the king will say to those at his right hand, 'Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you? And the king will answer them, truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me. Mark chapter 10, verse 21 says, Jesus, looking at him, loved him and said, You lack one thing. Go, sell what you own and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me. Luke chapter 1, verses 52 and 53 say, God has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty. Luke chapter 3, verse 11 says, In reply, he said to them, Whoever has 2 coats must share with anyone who has none, and whoever has food must do likewise.
Thank you.
Mayor Edstrom Fox.
Hello, my name is Mayor Edstrom Fox, and I live at 208 William Street in Watertown. My pronouns are she, her, and I am part of the local group known as Building a Welcoming Watertown, first begun by 4 Watertown area congregations. I am also a member of that group's Emergency Warming Shelter Task Force. We continue to speak to the need for a community overnight warming shelter so that we may have the chance to reduce the number of those at risk of freezing to death during the upcoming winter months, particularly our homeless citizens and their families. We are seeking a non-religious public-private partnership with a public facility open to anyone in Watertown, available overnight when temperatures fall below freezing. We have many private volunteers already in place and ready for training, possibly through the city's just-in-time training program, along with the 70 Watertown citizens already registered on Weaver, the Wisconsin Emergency Assistance Volunteer Registry website. We still believe that if anyone in our community is in danger of freezing to death, that's on all of us. We are grateful for the input and conversations we've been having with various city officials over the last year, and especially the last 6 months, including with Mayor Stocks, Carol Quest, and Jonathan Lampe. It was recently discovered that the city already had a warming cooling shelter plan approved by this council as of last year in June of 2024, which is now section 6.4 of the City of Watertown Policy Manual. We have learned that that existing emergency plan will be going before Watertown's Public Safety and Welfare Committee tomorrow, Wednesday, August 6th, for some necessary basic updates. We sincerely hope and pray that the Public Safety Committee and City Council members here will take into consideration the tragic deaths and near misses in Watertown this past winter, despite this previous, obviously inadequate city plan. We hope you will also recognize our Emergency Warming Shelters Task Force efforts for a year now to bring about the necessary changes and community awareness in order to prevent such deaths or near deaths from ever happening again here in our fine, heavily Christian, pro-life city. We hope to open the joint public-private emergency warming shelter this October when temperatures are likely to drop below freezing once again. Thank you for your consideration and for listening.
Thank you.
Margarita Hess.
Hello, my name is Margarita Haas, 706 Crestview Drive. A rather effective tactic commonly used by pseudo-Christian cults that are actually enemies of God is to use a parade of Bible verses out of context as a bludgeoning tool in an effort to guilt and shame the hearer into submission to their will, because their will is God's will. I've watched those same tactics employed in recent council meetings regarding our warm and cooling homeless shelter on Main Street, even though these types of resources already exist. Building a Welcoming Watertown, a tax-exempt organization comprised of self-proclaimed social justice mission-driven places of worship, submitted this proposal for a public-private partnership, i.e. taxpayer-funded, shelter and other services with likely minimal public oversight or planning. Tragedies like homelessness and death from hypothermia are sad and very unfortunate. I get it. But installing a new shelter in a town of just over 20,000 people with very few homeless seems excessive and would undoubtedly be an invitation for others within a 50-mile radius. And let's be honest, there are almost always underlying issues associated with the homeless populations. So what mental health, substance counseling, emergency services, and requests for space of property to house such services will taxpayers be on the hook for? This will undoubtedly have an impact on the surrounding small businesses that are already struggling and the entire city, a city with a median income of approximately $68,000. These tax-exempt organizations should house people in their large, well-manicured properties and homes, and they should do so since they feel strongly about caring for homeless and the downtrodden. But taxpayers should not be coerced or guilted into doing so. 2 Corinthians 9:7 tells the church to provide for the needy in the church, not reluctantly or under compulsion. The original purpose of tax-exempt status for organizations was so that through donations, nonprofits would spend their time and resources housing and feeding the needy. But according to Cause IQ, there are over 16,000 civil rights and social justice organizations in the U.S. Combined, they earn more than $12 billion in annual revenue and have assets of $25 billion, and that's not including the billions of revenue and assets of churches. Yet there are over 5,000 homeless shelters with only a few owned by social justice organizations. And my question is, where is all the money going? What's it being used for? In closing, according to the Daily Times, Mayor, you are on the committee of Building a Welcome Watertown, which, if true, is a conflict of interest, and I sure hope you recuse yourself from voting on this, if it's true. I, as a citizen of this great constitutional republic we call the United States, and a homeowner in this beautiful, very welcoming city of Watertown, whose property taxes just increased, I ask that if or when this proposal comes to a vote, please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. There is an opportunity to end the meeting as well. Okay, move on to reports. Put them all together. Planning Commission minutes from June 9th. Main Street Program Board Director minutes from June 17th. Finance Committee minutes from June 23rd. Planning Commission minutes from June 23rd. Tourism minutes from July 10th. RDA minutes from July 16th. And Downtown Main Street Reconstruction Task Force minutes from July 22nd. Mr. Berg?
Mayor Stocks, I'm just looking at the June 9th Plan Commission minutes, and I'm asking on that action that was taken involving the Edge Field subdivision sidewalk topic. Does remind me, because again, I've been off for 6 years, our council, and I'm just trying to be reminded of what our current policy, it talks about a decision where they could have gone on both sides of the street versus one side, and the developer was suggesting one side versus both for different reasons, and that went to a vote. But so does the policy give that discretion and that allowance for either one side or both?
I believe the ordinance wanted on both sides. The developer is asking for one, and that vote tied 2-2 and failed.
Right,
So
I
it
see
stayed
that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, if the policy says both sides, then that is the policy. It looked like there was a choice here and a decision. So if it's optional, then I'm just trying to get clarity on whether it's optional or if it's required.
Both sides was required. The motion was to try to put on one side only, and that motion then failed, so it's stuck with both sides of the subdivision. Okay. Any other questions on those? Okay, move on to communication. Fire Department Operations Update, Ladder and Myovision Opticum. See Chief's on the phone.
Yep, I don't
Okay.
have anything to add. It was just a communication, so I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay. Does anybody have questions for the chief? Mr. Lampy?
Ladder truck being such a large item, do we have any clarification on when that would potentially arrive, or we'd have to pay for it?
Yeah, we're still looking at Q1 of 2028 so far. We're waiting on the engineering drawings to make that final drawing approval, and then we'll get a final date for sure, but we're definitely looking at 2028.
I guess the second part of the question was then the sequencing of the payments necessary to keep that on schedule.
Oh, yep, absolutely. Nope, we've confirmed our spot just by the order, and so payments won't be due until the delivery time. There's might be some costs incurred if we don't take delivery and don't pay for the truck, if we do the midpoint inspection or final inspection, and then choose not to approve payment of it. But right now, there's no risk, and we've got a spot locked in.
Thank you.
Mr. Parks?
Thank you.
Yeah, Chief, it's great to see the Opticon's traffic control system is now fully installed. What date was that installed?
They were installed about 2 weeks ago. I don't have the exact date off the top of my head, but what we've done is we've time-stamped it, and so once we get a couple weeks of it fully functioning, then I'm going to do a couple more reports, and then we'll put something forward on that. But I wanted to have like a 106 Jones Street times for us at 621 Bernard before Opticom, and then times from here on out, just to kind of give you guys a beginning, middle, and end for where we're sitting.
Yep, great, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Anybody else? Mr. Molnauer?
Just one question for the chief.
Yes.
That traffic controller, how is that working? Pretty good? I mean, is that working really well?
The crews are loving it. The shift commander especially, because sometimes they're ahead of it and so they get to hit all the lights. They are finding that it's easier to get through on 26th Street in Bernard now that everything's working there. And Main Street, when they turn the corner, all the lights turn green for them, and they're just, they haven't had any like grumbles or they're not upset about anything. They're like, this is really nice. So I just wanted to say I appreciate the support to get this up and running for them so far. And
Comfortable
we'll
with
be
it then?
finalizing getting the rest shortly.
Okay, thank you very
Yeah.
much.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Thank you, guys.
thank you. New business, review and take action committee appointments.
Mr. Mayor,
There's one
I'll
there.
move for the adoption of your appointment of Mr. Callis to the Ethics Board.
Okay, motion by Berg. Second by Molnauer. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next payroll summary, June 25th through July 8th of 2025, and July 9th through July 22nd of 2025. Any questions on it? Okay, next move on ordinances. Ordinance 25-15 amends section 500-6 parking limitations. Municipal parking lot limitations, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis from the Public Safety and Welfare Committee on its second reading. Ms. Davis?
25-15 on its second reading.
Okay, motion by Davis, second by Wetzel. Any discussion on it?
Just to clarify, if I could, this is that there's 92 stalls on that First Street parking lot. Is that what we're referring to, that long section of parking lot there on First Street, right?
These are on Jones Street parking lot. So we're removing them. There were 4 stalls that were reserved for the city of Watertown.
Jones and First, okay, on that small section.
They were reserved for the engineering team, and they don't need them anymore. So
Okay.
we're just no longer reserving those
All
4
right, I got
stalls.
Okay.
Davis? Lampy? Berg?
Aye.
Bartz?
Aye.
Smith? Arnett. Wetzel. Moldenhauer. Motion carried.
Okay, next, ordinance 25-16, create a portion of section 500-3, stop intersections, sponsored by Alder Davis and the Public Safety and Welfare Committee on its second reading.
I'll move for adoption.
Okay, motion by Berg,
Second.
second by Davis. Okay, any discussion on it? Okay,
Berg.
Aye.
Bartz. Smith. Arnett. Wetzel. Moldenhauer. Davis. Lampy. Motion carried.
okay. Next, ordinance 25-17, amend section 500-8, heavy traffic prohibited by posted signs, sponsored by Alder Davis and the Public Safety and Welfare Committee on its second reading. Mr. Lampy?
I would move for ordinance 25-17.
Okay, motion by Lampy,
Second.
second by Bartz. Any discussion on that one? Mr. Berg?
I've had questions from people just asking for the definition of a truck, because Amazon and Prime and UPS are, they appear to be trucks, but they don't qualify for that type of restriction.
The ordinance speaks to heavy traffic, heavy trucks. I don't know if there's a difference there between delivery.
Heavy traffic, heavy trucks?
Well, heavy traffic.
I see heavy traffic, yeah. So these kinds of examples I just mentioned are exempt from that?
It's my understanding that they're exempt. I don't know if anyone else has further information.
Chief would know better than I. Go ahead, Chief.
Just in a general sense, deliveries to places in that spot would be exempt. So if you were driving a semi-trailer to deliver heavy load on that route, you'd be allowed to do that. You just have to get there in as short a distance as possible and leave in as short a distance as possible. So if a delivery truck were delivering on that road, they'd be fine. But if they were just using it as a thoroughfare, then no, they'd have to find another route, use the heavy truck route.
So it's a qualified restriction, yeah.
If I may, in our code, heavy traffic defined, in this section, heavy traffic means all vehicles or combinations of vehicles other than motor buses designed or used for transporting property of any nature and having a gross weight of more than 12,000 pounds. You'll find that all those delivery trucks that you're describing are well under that gross weight.
Okay.
Lampy. Berg.
Aye.
Bartz.
Aye.
Smith. Arnett. Wetzel. Moldenhauer. Davis.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next, ordinance 25-18, amend section 38-4, bond deposit schedule of the City of Watertown General Ordinances, sponsored by myself and the Finance Committee on its second reading. Mr. Lampy?
I would move for ordinance 25-18.
Okay, motion by Lampy, second by Smith. Okay, any discussion on that one? Okay.
Lampy. Berg.
Aye.
Bartz. Smith. Arnett. Wetzel. Moldenhauer.
Aye.
Davis. Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. Next, ordinance 25-19, amend chapter 550, official zoning map of the City of Watertown through rezoning of 213 South First Street, parcel number 291-0815-0421-161 for multifamily residential, MR8, zoning district to central business, and zoning district classifications. Sponsored by myself and the Planning Commission on its first reading.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Bartz. Second by Moldenhauer. Okay, any discussion on that one?
Bartz. Smith. Arnett. Wetzel. Moldenhauer. Davis. Lampy. Berg. Motion carried.
Okay, next. Ordinance 25-20, amend chapter 550, official zoning map of the City of Watertown through the rezoning of 213 South First Street, parcel number 291-0815-0421-161 for multifamily residential, MR8, zoning district to central business, CB, zoning district classification, sponsored by myself and the Planning Commission. It's first reading. Mr. Smith.
For adoption.
I'll move for ordinance 25-20.
Okay, motion by Smith. Second by Berg. Okay. Any discussion? Okay.
Smith,
Aye.
Arnett,
Aye.
Wetzel, Moldenhauer, Davis, Lampy,
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
Bartz.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, next ordinance 25-21, amend section 428-11 of the City of Watertown General Ordinances, sponsored by Elder Davis from Public Safety and Welfare Committee on its first reading. Mr. Lampy.
Oh, I move for ordinance 25-21.
Okay, motion by Lampy and second by Davis. Okay, any discussion on that one? Mr. Lampy?
As you can see in your packet on 35, this has a couple of additions. Some of the most important ones are the explicit introduction of the Watertown Main Street program as the entity that operates the farmers market. There's also another clause in there oriented toward safety of farmers market, which has recently been a concern among the folks down there, which talks about closing Ann Street as well during the hours of the farmers market.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, Megan.
Lampy,
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
Bartz, Smith, Arnett,
Aye.
Wetzel, Moldenhauer, Davis. Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. All right, resolutions. Exhibit 9769, resolution approving the land purchase for property located at 510 South 2nd Street, City of Watertown, sponsored by myself and the Finance Committee. Ms. Davis?
I'll move for Exhibit 9769.
Okay, motion by Davis, second by Bartz. Okay, any discussion? Mr. Arnett?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Understanding the project that this will lead to, from my perspective, this project is from the land of nice to have, of need to have. And we don't need this. Business of creating more housing lots, not taking them off the market.
Mr. Berg?
I appreciate Alderperson Arnett's view in a very good way, but I'd like to have some people from the Health Department give, again, the rationale and why we need this additional land. I know that the Health Department is a very important department within our city. I know they have a building that's largely for them to use. So I'd like to hear a little bit of a rationale for this purchase.
Come up, Carol.
So in the memo, I outlined a few of the programs that are important to the health department. The one that I would love to have a video of, we are the only entity in the city that provides car seat installation and safety checks for car seats. And often when a family comes to the health department for that, we have other siblings along, and the siblings are out of the car. So we just had one, I think it was yesterday or it could have been Friday. There are other siblings out of the car standing in the parking lot. The car seat technician and the parents are trying to learn how to put the car seat in safely. The children are running around in the parking lot. We have had near misses with other cars in our parking lot. That's one example. But we also would use that storage or that drive-through capacity for immunization clinics and some of our other environmental health programs as well. So this is an initiative that actually first started with Mayor John David probably, well, many years ago. And he saw the value of the health department having this type of capacity so that we can serve the community in ways that there's no other resource for, and doing it safely for our families.
Could you speak a little bit to the funding source as well?
Yes, so this would all be done through fund balance and through our ARPA grant that we have. So there would be no tax levy used for this project. Does that answer your question?
No,
Okay.
that's exactly what I was hoping to hear.
Okay.
Those ARPA funds are federal dollars that were made available, and we've got leftover dollars we can allocate to this?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And you're not putting up a building structure?
Yes, that is the plan.
Eventual?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, would you please clarify what is meant by fund balance?
So I have 4 budgets, and one of them is a tax levy budget. The other budgets are not, and at the end of the year, there's a fund balance or there's a deficit. So we have funding to use for projects, big projects. Like if we have, like in the environmental health program, we buy cars with that fund balance.
But one of your funding sources is city money, correct?
No,
You're not getting any
No.
city taxpayer dollars
no,
at all?
no. Correct, that is correct, none,
No city dollars?
correct.
But you just referred to one of them as being that way.
No. So the fund balance is only in the budgets that are not tax levy budgets.
I understand that, but I was asking for the clarification of your initial source of funds does include taxpayer funds,
Not local levy.
one of your 4 areas. You said you,
So that the health department, the community fund 1, there is no fund balance for. If there's a fund balance at the end of the year, that goes into the city fund balance. That isn't part of this budget.
how do you choose which expenses get paid out of which account?
Where the services are provided out of. So, for example, I have an environmental health budget, and that is completely supported by grants and fees. And all of the work in that budget is staffing, supplies that are required for that budget are all managed in that budget. And that receives no local tax levy.
In the case of the activities you described, the immunization clinic was one, the car seat support was another. Those are entirely paid for out
That
of
will
other
be
funds?
through ARPA, the ARPA funds.
I realize this project is, but I'm saying those activity areas, you're saying there's no, at this point in time, on an annual basis, there is no city funding going toward those programs.
So the programs are supported by local tax levy staffing
So then it's
to
merely,
to provide car seat installation and immunization, along with grants for the services.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does anybody else have a question for Mrs. Quest? Mr. Berg?
One more, well, I think I'll hold off a minute, I guess, and see if anybody
Okay.
else does.
Mr. Lampy?
I guess I just want to take us back into the packet on page 37. It's the written version, which I think we should probably regard as the authoritative version. It just basically says the funding source for this purchase would be ARPA funding. I don't see anything else in here about any other funding sources, so I would be inclined to believe for at least this purchase, it's entirely ARPA funds.
Correct.
Page 37, okay.
What I wanted to say, Mayor Stocks, is that one of our goals and our objectives as a council is to do long-term planning for our city going forward. And our city is unique in that we have a local health department that some smaller communities rely on the county for as far as providing that service. And the fact that we've got a building that has an ability for them to operate out of, but it may have some eventual need for enlargement or getting bigger at some point in time, to the extent we cannot have different departments in different parts of our city, but to keep them sort of in a geographical area where they are sort of contained, I think that's ideal, and that's the way it would work to be more efficient on the operations of that department. So I would say for us to spend $40,000 to acquire that lot and to have that kind of control over a future potential plan that may or may not happen, in the end, we can always sell that lot back at some point and get our money back, but the needs that she's expressed and the benefit that it's going to have for making that department more efficient in their, and more safer, I guess, in their operations would be money well spent. I'd be on the side of supporting the money.
Okay.
Just want to make a clarification. Mrs. Quest uses the term ARPA. City of Watertown received $2.4 million approximately of ARPA funds. Her ARPA is not the same as the $2.4 million. Hers is coming through Wisconsin Department of Human Services, Health Services. And so she has a different source of funds that is not the City of Watertown allocation of ARPA, just to clarify that.
Okay. Mr. Smith.
And it's also true that that funding is time limited. In other words, it was dispersed to the City of Watertown. It was on a specific period within which it could be used. And if it is not used within that period, it will be forfeited by the city back to the state.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Anybody else? Mr. Lampe?
Since we are talking about different ARPA funds, and since ARPA, in the traditional sense that the city's been working through that, is now represented by Fund 24, which fund are we passing this ARPA expense through?
I think it is 14.
I think it's Fund 14, which is not the ARPA non-recurring grants fund.
Right.
It's one of the ones that Health Department oversees.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, Megan?
Davis? Aye. Lampe?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
Bartz?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Arnett?
No.
Wetzel? Moldenhauer? Motion carried.
Okay. Thank you. Next, Exhibit 9770, Resolution Appointing City Attorney, sponsored by myself and the Finance Committee. Mr. Arnett?
Mr. Mayor, I move for 9770.
Okay, motion by Arnett. Second by Lampe. Okay, any discussion? Mr. Smith?
I'm going to support the hiring, and I was in favor of the hiring of this particular individual, and the specifics of this resolution only address the salary that is being approved for this individual. In the committee, I had voted against it because a kind of a variance of the regular city's vacation policy was being requested for exemption, and an additional week would an additional week based upon the number of years served is something that was being recommended, and I was opposed to that additional week. It was something not even close in terms of time in service, yet was being provided from this hire from the outside, and would not have been provided to somebody that had been working for the city, perhaps from the very inception of their employment. And so that was something that I was not in favor of, a provision of the general hiring package that's not included here as part of this resolution. And I'm going to be voting for it because this is an excellent candidate, and in the city's best interest that we hire this person. I was just not in favor of approving that additional week of vacation and would have preferred that not to have been included.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Anybody else? Okay.
Arnett,
Aye.
Wetzel, Moldenhauer,
Aye.
Davis, Lampy, Berg, Bartz, Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. Next, Exhibit 9771, resolution approving collateral assignment of TIF for Lumen Terrace LLC, sponsored by myself and the Finance Committee. Ms. Davis?
I'll move for Exhibit 9771.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Mr. Wetzel? Okay, any discussion on that one? Mr. Arnett?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and realizing this is it's a relatively small follow-on action to what has already been approved, I would just like to make a note to remind people that the taxpayers of the city of Watertown are paying $22,000 per apartment under this agreement. $22,000 per apartment for apartments the majority will never have a chance of affording.
Well, Megan?
Davis,
Excuse me.
Sorry, I was looking, yeah, Mr. Berg?
Again, Alderperson Arnett is right on with his point. So I think as a council, we had a decision to make of whether we wanted to have development at that location or not. And in that TIF, in order to entice and in order to incentivize that developer to do 65 or 68 units of development, a package was negotiated. Again, it's more than I would prefer, but in the end, it's going to create a very healthy tax base at some point when this TIF is retired. In the meantime, it's going to create some population that's not there now, and 68 units of housing is going to bring a couple hundred different people, 200, 300 people that'll be in our city living that weren't otherwise having a place to live. I think it is a tough decision each time for our council to decide on how much we should give to entice and incentivize development in our community. But we need growth, and I felt that this location by the river had the potential of being a good development. I think they were spending $15 million. That tax base will be there at some point. We will all benefit from. In the meantime, we're going to have people there that aren't there now, and I think each time we have to make that decision, I'm just giving the rationale for why it made sense for me on this one to vote yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Berg. Anybody else? Okay.
Davis.
Aye.
Lampy,
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
Bartz,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Arnett,
No.
Wetzel, Moldenhauer. Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. Next, Exhibit 9772, resolution to approve change order 1 to Plaza Phase 2 ADA concrete ramp improvement contract number 10-25 with Moss Brothers Construction Company Incorporated for $79,648.85. Sponsored by Alderman Annette from the Public Works Commission. Mr. Arnett?
Mayor, I'll move for 9772.
Okay, motion by Arnett. Second by Bartz. Okay, discussion on that one. Okay, thank you.
Arnett,
Aye.
Wetzel, Moldenhauer,
Aye.
Davis, Lampy,
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
Bartz,
Aye.
Smith. Motion carried.
Okay, next, Exhibit 9773, resolution to accept improvements through substantial completion for Rock River Ridge Phase 1 subdivision located in the city of Watertown, sponsored by myself and the Plan Commission. I think somebody wanted it. Nate, you there?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Bartz.
I am here. Sorry.
Okay, 1 sec. Give a second. Mr. Molnauer, a second? Okay. Okay, and go ahead, Nate.
You know, I think if Ben Waymeyer is in the room, he was going to say one or two things.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We just thought it was appropriate with this next phase of this project out at the collective campus site to kind of just give an update to the council where things are at, and just really kind of look at where we're at of this span of this project that started in October 2022. As we look at the 3 Ps, as we're calling it, the public-private philanthropy investment, we're going to see close to over $100 million investments about 5 to 6 years out there between the YMCA, the fire department, over 183 units of housing units, the collective site, which has over 9 businesses, nonprofits operating out right now, along with 2 housing that's providing a place of shelter for a population that needs it right now. And so it's a chance to talk through the wins of where it's at, and actually we're ahead of schedule because there is such a demand for housing of what's going on right now. And so as an example of that is Harbor Homes. They bought their next 27, so we have that cul-de-sac at the end that's paved, and they're already set to go. We have 5 of those, 6 of those already pre-sold, and they're going to actually start staking out the silt fencing as we drove by today. The first 12 homes, if you go out there, there's 3 new neighbors out there already. Tina took a picture of 2 little kiddos playing out there with their bikes, right? Celebrating what that looks like. But it's also, as you look at how that develops, it's the ecosystem of housing and what takes place. As we look at the YMCA as an example moving forward, there'll be an opportunity with the city to look at what does that look like from a planning standpoint for potentially new housing. We know from the data sets we have at least 5 residents within the city limits moved out to the new homes in Rock River Ridge, which means we have 5 new homes that are affordable for folks within the city of Watertown. We also had 4 folks from out of state come in, so attracting new residents, Mr. Berg, as well, plus 5 from neighboring communities. The twin homes that are being done by White Oaks, which is a local builder, has 2 started already, with the 3rd that will start by the end of the year. We are so far ahead of schedule with the demand that we're going to consolidate the next 2 phases and begin a final construction phase of 2 and 3 in spring of 2026. We expect it to be done by the fall, so the next phase of construction can take place. What you just voted on, Lumen Terrace, they officially closed last week, and they'll begin construction here very soon. This time next year, you're going to have 93 new apartment units available. Again, hopefully open up other housing units within the city of Watertown and neighboring communities to really look at where things are going. Recently, the Watertown Daily Times and Milwaukee Biz Times talks about where things are going with new housing permits. In Jefferson County specifically, along with Dodge County, was ranked number 2 Jefferson County in terms of percentage of new housing permits issued year over year. This is a big part, not only just Rock River Ridge, but other projects going on within the city of Watertown that made that data points go up. So again, as we look at it and the idea of how do we create more housing units and looking at unique ideas to do it, it's a partnership that made this stuff happen. And I appreciate the opportunity that we can talk through how do we make this work, what's the fiscal prudent way to make it happen, and opportunities to partner in the future. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to talk through where we're at. We'd like to share more fiscal ideas in the future with the council to go forward, but if you have not been out to the site lately, please come out and see the new neighbors. We're looking forward to the opportunity this fall to celebrate some celebration with the opening of the YMCA, celebrating the 10th year anniversary of the foundation and the joint venture of the hospital, and really just to look at what it is doing for the community of that investment, including a youth crisis stabilization facility. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ben. Any further discussion on Exhibit 9773? Okay.
Bartz. Smith. Arnett. Wetzel. Moldenhauer.
Aye.
Davis. Lampy. Berg. Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. All right, next, comments and suggestions from citizens present. Please state your name and address. Have up to 3 minutes.
Jeremy Schmidt.
Jeremy Schmidt, 1011 Meadow Street, Watertown, Wisconsin. 6th generation citizen of Watertown. I represent Building and Welcoming Watertown as a pro tem treasurer currently. I would like you to consider our proposal on the warming shelter. All city employees are leaders. should consider their values and leadership. Loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, integrity, personal courage. If you know where that comes from, you know where I come from. I'm going to highlight some other values that you should consider to give access to those struggling with homelessness so that we don't have another incident or two that happened this last winter. 1, showing empathy involves understanding and sharing the feelings of another person. It's about putting yourself in their shoes and recognizing their emotional state. Showing empathy can be as simple as actively listening to someone, acknowledging their feelings, or offering support. Why is empathy important? It's crucial for building strong relationships, fostering trust, promoting positive interactions. It helps us connect with others on a deeper level and create a sense of belonging. By showing empathy, we can make others feel heard, understood, and supported. Dignity. Showing dignity involves treating oneself and others with respect, acknowledging their inherent worth, and acting with integrity, consideration, even in challenging situations. It's about recognizing that everyone is valuable and deserves to be treated ethically and with kindness. Equality. Showing equality means ensuring everyone has the same value, rights, and opportunities regardless of their differences. It emphasizes treating other individuals fairly and providing equal access to resources and chances to succeed. It's not about giving handouts, it's about giving a hand up. Examples include equal pay for equal work, equal access to education, equal voting rights, equal access for homeless individuals to housing. Housing crisis is upon us. When a city employee is presented with a person whom is struggling with homelessness, there's no wrong door. Okay, we don't need to be, we need to give them resources like a one-night voucher from the police department, right? Heritage Inn will gladly take an individual. You have there's many individuals who are on hotel vouchers currently. Give them a where to find guide. Have them give an agency, a CAP agency, Community Action Coalition, a call to do an intake and get a housing referral. We have over 4 housing programs in Jefferson County with 58 individuals. 12 households currently are in Watertown. We need to have a warming shelter so that no one else passes away. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Chris Ross.
Hi, Chris Ross, 432 West Clover Lane, Cottage Grove. To continue to help provide as full a picture as possible. Luke chapter 4, verse 18 says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and a recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free." Luke chapter 6, verses 20 through 21 say, "Then he looked up at his disciples and said, 'Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you will be filled. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh.'" Luke chapter 7, verse 22 says, "And he answered them, 'Go and tell John what you have seen and heard. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, the poor have good news brought to them.'" Luke chapter 10, verse 27 says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." Luke chapter 11, verse 41 says, "So give for alms those things that are within, and see everything will be clean for you." Luke chapter 12, verses 33 through 34 say, "Sell your possessions and give alms. Make purses for yourselves that do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Luke chapter 14, verses 12 through 14 say, "He said also to the one who had invited him, 'When you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or rich neighbors, in case they may invite you in return, and you would be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind, and you will be blessed because they cannot repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. Luke chapter 14, verse 21 says, So the slave returned and reported this to his master. Then the owner of the house became angry and said to his slave, Go out at once and into the streets and lanes of the town and bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame. Luke chapter 18, verse 22 says, When Jesus heard this, he said to them, There is still one thing lacking. Sell all that you own and distribute the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me. Luke chapter 9, verse 8 says, Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, Look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor. If I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much. Luke chapter 21, verses 1 through 4 say, He looked up and saw rich people putting their gifts into the treasury. He also saw a poor widow put in 2 small copper coins. He said, Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them, for all of them have contributed out of their abundance, but she out of her poverty has put in all she had to live on.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Next, we'll move to adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Berg, second by Lampy. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much.